I'll be ranking the top 10 offensive curse techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen. The methodology will be power, versatility, and drawbacks, with each having a total of 10. So for power, this will be their destructive capabilities and also how strong the attack is. So for example, it will vary for different techniques. For example, Idle Transfiguration won't necessarily have the destructive capabilities such as Hollow Purple. However, it will get marks depending on what the ability does with its respective power. We then have versatility. So like in the name, this is going to be how versatile the technique is, how many different things they can do with the technique is, and how is it compared to getting countered by other techniques. Drawbacks will be whatever weaknesses the technique has. The higher the score, that means there is a limited amount of weaknesses, and the lower the score, that means there is a lot of weaknesses. So without further ado, let's start off with number 10, and this will be blood manipulation. So in terms of power, it obviously can poison people, it has the different abilities of blood attacks, and it has a great level of damage capabilities that makes it one of the strongest techniques. It gets a perfect 10 for power just with how damaging blood manipulation can be, as well as the way in which there is numerous different techniques that can indicate poison and can end up doing a lot of damage. Now versatility. This is probably one of its best features, and with how versatile the different blood techniques are. I mean, Choso himself showed us numerous amount of abilities, which some such as Supernova, we have the Convergence, we have the blood doping. The extent to the different type of abilities that can be used with blood manipulation is endless, and it's probably one of the most versatile techniques that we've seen in the series, giving this a perfect 10. Now drawback. This is unfortunate where it takes away marks from blood manipulation. For Choso, he doesn't have these obviously drawbacks with him becoming a death painting, meaning he has access to something such as the extensive blood supply and isn't hindered by such a big weakness. However, ordinary shamans, and specifically someone such as Kamo, not having extensive amount of blood and having to use things such as blood packets and etc. to able to boost his technique, makes it very difficult for him, and it gives it a nice rating of 4 out of 10. I mean, this is such a big weakness, and I mean with blood manipulation having such great abilities and properties that can be overwhelming as an offensive weapon, drawback is such a big problem, rounds it up with a total score of 24 out of 30. And this will end up with blood manipulation at number 10. Number 9, and this is going to be curse manipulation. So this is the technique from Gato and now Kenjaku, and the attack power is very high. I mean, they can summon multiple curses, even some such as the smallpox deity, which can have domain expansions, and they can take even high level curses such as Mahito, giving them such a level of destructive capabilities that it's just going to be very difficult for most sorcerers to deal with, giving it a nice score of 10. I believe it's easy 10. The fact that they can just create so many, and as well of them with having so much different abilities, he has a different level of destructive capabilities, which not necessarily of the one-shot capabilities such as something like a Hollow Purple. However, it has elite level utility with the fact that you can have multiple curses with different abilities which can be super effective. Now, when we come to versatility, it's an easy 10 as well, arguably the most versatile technique out of all of them. He can capture different level of curses which can be used for the supply in his attacks. Moreover, he can get certain curses for certain situations, and I mean the fact that he can get curses that have domain expansions just give him a level of versatility that just people in the series just will not have. Now we go to the drawbacks, and unfortunately the drawbacks are pretty strong for curse manipulation. First, from what we can infer from Gato and his POV, taste is akin to that of vomit. So the taste is very hard to get back, and it was part of the reason to why his eventual psyche in Gato ended up with him becoming more crazy. It wasn't the main reason, but it helped with how monotonous his daily life is as a cursed user. Moreover, you can only be as strong as the respective user in terms of using curse manipulation, with them having to exercise the curses to add to their arsenal. If they can't defeat such high level curses such as the Mahitos and etc, it takes away that great capabilities that the technique has, because they just can't defeat those level of curses, meaning it's only as strong as the user that is using it, and I think it nicely ends up with a total score of 25. And number 8 is the 10 Shadows technique. So in terms of power, the power is pretty good, and he has access to a numerous amount of Shinigami. He has things such as Max Elephant, Divine Dog Totality has the attack power to be able to damage such a special grade such as Hanami, meaning he has great damage. However, he obviously has to combine them together, and in terms of outright damage, a lot of people can dodge them, so I think he gets a nice 9 in terms of damage, and especially with the addition of something such as Muhuraga, which is more of a nuke than anything, it gives them obviously a potential trump card to be used, and that's why I'll give it a 9, because it isn't an instant win condition, because the user will die as well. Now we go to versatility, and it's a perfect score of 10. It has one of the greatest versatilities that we've seen with the different type of Shinigami. Obviously, we've seen such things such as Rabbit Escape, Nue, Max Elephant, Divine Dog Totality, and with more to come, it still indicates how diverse the 10 Shadows technique is, and being able to specifically use them in the Shadows in his domain expansion gives him another level of versatility as well. Now we go to the drawbacks, and the drawbacks at this moment in time is 1, Muhuraga. You have the strongest Shikigami that can't even be used unless you want to use it as a suicide attack, meaning that until the first person can tame it, which we assume Megumi will, it will not be the biggest usage of his arsenal. Moreover, it costs a lot of curse energy reserves to use, meaning you need to have a lot of curse energy to be able to constantly summon these different levels of Shikigami. However, that will only give it to a drawback of 8, and even though Muhuraga is a drawback right now, I do believe we will get to a situation where Megumi has tamed Muhuraga and it will become the biggest asset to his arsenal. So I believe this gives a nice total score of 26, and this will have the 10 Shadows technique at number 8. Number 7, and this will be Yuta's curse technique in Mimicry. So Mimicry, when we go to power, the power is very high, and obviously is as strong as the abilities he has taken. So with this, he can be as strong as he wants depending on how many abilities he has taken. So for example, if we preface this with someone as Yuta, he has curse speech, he has sky manipulation, and he has such other abilities such as Shikigamis and stuff, which gives him a different level of output and power. Moreover, his curse technique allows him to manifest Rika, which comes with the ability of obviously Mimicry, meaning that we include Rika within his curse technique, meaning it is another level of power that he gains because it ends up becoming a 2v1. Versatility, he arguably has the best versatility in the series, with the fact that he can copy abilities. With the fact that he can copy them and use different ones for the best situation, it gives him numerous avenues to deal with numerous different fighters. Now the drawbacks, and there's one major drawback with the fact that he can only use it for 5 minutes. Because of this is the only big weakness to obviously Mimicry, and it's why I have it at a total of 26 and giving this drawback a 6 out of 10. Such a big disadvantage, and it takes Yuta, who could become one of the most broken curse techniques, to a very elite level technique which has to be used masterfully by the user. Yuta has to be careful in which when he decides to use it, because he only has access to these abilities for that 5 minutes, meaning he has to maximize his output. Moreover, there is still the condition on whether he has a condition to copy his techniques. There's people such as Ryu who's implied heavily that he has a technique, when there's even parts such as Kenjaku indicates that Yuta does not have a condition. However, until we see furthermore in the story, we will not know whether he has a condition to use Mimicry, but if it doesn't, it could potentially boost him even more because he will have 0 conditions. Number 6, and this will be sky manipulation. So sky manipulation allows them to evade and fly away, and we also have the ability of Thin Ice Missile, which breaks guard. So we can infer this from the fight against Yuta. When Uru used Thin Ice Missile, it broke his guard, and it could be seen as an attack which, if it's going to break your guard, it will have high level damage. Moreover, Yuta himself, and from the little dialogue that we got from Ryu, we could hear that Yuta was using reverse curse technique after all their big attacks, so for example such as Thin Ice Missile, indicating it has a lot of damage. Moreover, we saw Yuta use it against Ryu at the end part of the fight, and we saw the damage that it did to his body. So for this, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, only because at this moment of time, even though it can break the guard, we don't know how much damage it can really do, with the fact that obviously Yuta was spamming reverse curse technique each time, and even in the fight against Ryu took so much damage that I can't even tell you what was the main thing that made him drop, so it's just kind of hard to quantify. but the versatility is pretty good, and I think it's one of the best that we've seen, and I think this is another solid 9 as well. It can distort space to fly and jump opponents, with the fact that Thin Ice Missile can break guard, and even as we can see in the brief fight, she can distort people's body, meaning that they can prevent their guard and allow her to overpower people in hand-to-hand combat. This gives her a new level of versatility, and I believe she uses her ability to not only get her in the best situation with Thin Ice Missile, but she can use it to maneuver herself to end up jumping her opponents, and it gives her a level of versatility with the Sky ability. Now let's go to obviously drawbacks, and the drawback is Thin Ice Missile. We don't know if it's the finishing move to obviously kill somebody. This moment of time with what we've seen with Sky Manipulation is very dependent on Thin Ice Missile as the finishing move, and unless there is more to come from her ability, there is nothing to indicate we haven't seen numerous abilities which can put somebody down for the count. Moreover, with the fact that Sky Manipulation maximizes your utility in being able to fly away and to evade from danger, but if Thin Ice Missile isn't enough to put people down, then she lacks that capability of a finishing move, meaning she can't even utilize her ability of Sky Manipulation to the fullest because there isn't a finishing move to put down their opponent, meaning that she'll have to get closer to them and try to overpower them with such things such as hand-to-hand combat, and it gives an indication to why that it will be a drawback. However, it's not as big, and it's why it will end up with a total score of 9. So this will give Sky Manipulation a total score of 27, and that is why I have it comfortably in the 6th spot. Now number 5, and this will be Disaster Flames. So Disaster Flames, let's get to power. The flames burn you on impact. We saw the damage it's done to multiple grade 1 and grade 2 sorcerers in Maki, Nabito and Nanami. We also see he can use it as Ember Insects and also Flame Disaster, with the fact that it has such high properties and being a bad elemental matchup for everybody, it gets a high score of 9. I'm only not giving it 10 because we saw Maki, who was injured, we saw Nanami, who was tired and injured, and Nabito, who was tired and injured, still managed to survive the flames. It might not necessarily have the one-shot capabilities, and especially as the fact that even the Ember Insects being something of great usage, it right now hasn't been seen to do enough damage for me to say that it can kill someone straight away. Now we get to versatility, and it has an 8 out of 10, with having Ember Insects can use the flames on impact and can use the flames as beams, giving him a good usage of utility. It's pretty simple and there's not too much in terms of what else he can do. However, I think it gives him a good usage of close range fighting, mid range fighting, and obviously long range fighting with his insects as well. Drawbacks, I actually don't have any drawbacks. There is nothing I saw that was a weakness, and he gets a perfect score of 10. I mean, there is nothing I've seen in terms of a weakness to his ability, and it was just the fact that he got overpowered by far stronger Jujutsu sorcerers. So this gives it a total score of 27, and I think Disaster Flames is a very, very strong curse technique. Number 4, and this will be Granate Blaster. So when we go to power, what can we say? It has the highest output, and you can use widespread beams to attack multiple people. Basically close to a one-shot capability, and for the majority of Jujutsu sorcerers, especially those that do not have reverse curse technique, they are getting packed up with a swiftness. So for that is an easy 10, and we'll go now to versatility. So he can make his beams into smaller beams and then obviously into widespread beams. He can also make them into multiple smaller beams, and in my opinion, he actually has a little bit underrated versatility based on the usage of his obviously curse technique. So for that, I'll give it a nice score of 8 because how simple the technique is. I think it's still pretty versatile with being able to make multiple smaller beams and wider beams for whatever purpose needed. Drawbacks, he doesn't have drawbacks as well. I mean, the only drawback I can see is the fact that if the user wasn't Ryu, we know that Ryu has constant output depending on whatever blast he uses, and him having the highest output could be an indication to why his ability is so strong. However, maybe for the normal standard user who was to inherit Granate Blaster, they would not necessarily be able to use this level of technique so continuously. So for that sake, I'm still going to give him a 10 because there at this moment of time seem to be no weakness, and he can seem to keep spamming it with the same output for each blow. This will give Granate Blaster a total of 28. Number 3, and this will be Sukuna's curse technique in Cleave and Dismantle. So in terms of power, I don't need to say anything. I mean, cleave can automatically adjust on the target's toughness, and dismantle is just a regular slashing attacks which we have seen to be able to overpower numerous high level sorcerers and curses such as Muhuraga. The versatility though is an 8 because obviously even though cleave can adjust the target's strength, it's still only 2 variations of slashing attacks, meaning there isn't too much to do. However, in terms of slashing, it's pretty versatile and obviously evident with cleave adjusting to the specific target. The drawbacks, like I said, at this moment of time, there's 0. We haven't seen any drawbacks with cleave and dismantle, and if anything, the technique is similar to that of a nuke, pretty much killing everybody it's been in contact with. However, unless people such as Muhuraga, I don't think that many users can deal with it, and I think it has a nice score of 28, really just lacking in the versatility aspect. Number 2, and this will be Mahito's Idol Transfugation. So Idol Transfugation is an elite technique. Only weakness is really its attack power. As we can see from the attack power, even with such a broken ability of being able to transfigure people based on touches, we know that with higher end Jujutsu sorcerers, it takes multiple touches for the effect of his Idol Transfugation to occur. This was evident with Nanami saying that he needs multiple. However, for grade 2 sorcerers and below such as Nobara and etc, it only takes 1 hit for the effect to happen and it becomes a scary technique. So in terms of power, I give it a 9 out of 10 just because it takes multiple for high-end sorcerers. So the higher end the sorcerers, the more difficult the technique can be used. However, he has stuff like the body repel, Idol Transfugation, the polymotic soul isomer, and obviously his final form, instant body of killing, which takes him to a whole new level of power that we haven't seen in this series. Versatility is an easy 10. The way in which he can change the shape of his soul, he can make dangerous techniques go away with the fact that Idol Transfugation can destroy them. He can even combine his transfigured humans into more dangerous ones, indicating with his soul isomer, meaning he can make them into more dangerous blows, and even use things such as body repel, which he combines with soul manipulacity to then use to attack Jujutsu sorcerers. He can use his transfigured humans to the highest ability and can give him a level of versatility that, in my opinion, if you want to say is the highest in the series, I don't think there is an argument to be had. Bar things such as obviously mimicry and the 10 shadows technique, it has a high level of versatility which is akin and perfectly used with the user such as Mahito. Now let's go to drawbacks. At this moment of time, there is none. So there is one drawback to obviously Mahito. You need a lot of curse energy to make Idol Transfugation effective, with the fact that if you end up exhausting all your curse energy, you can be to the point where even grade 2 sorcerers can extinguish them. However, that is just one specific scenario for them to get to, with the fact that they can change the shape of their soul, they can make up for a lot of deficiencies, they can end up transfiguring humans and using them on the offense. I think the only real kind of weakness is the fact that the curse energy and the fact that you have to be a psycho to be able to use the ability to its fullest. You have to be a personality similar of Mahito to be able to get behind the skin of your opponent, to use it to wear down their mental state. It's what made Mahito such a dangerous fighter, and for that is the reason why I give that part a 9, and I'll give a total score of 28. Now you may be thinking, what? You've given Cleave Dismantle 28, you've given Granate Blaster a 28, and you've given Idol Transfugation a 28. I've kept them in this order because I still think Idol Transfugation is better. However, based on the properties of obviously the methodology that we're using, this is how it turns out, and I want people to take it with a grain of salt. And obviously, if you disagree with me, let me know your opinions down below. But before we get to number 1, I'll briefly talk about some of my honorable mentions, and that will be Blackbird Manipulation from Mei. So Mei using the Blackbird Manipulation, she's given her high level damage that we haven't seen. The versatility is pretty good because of the fact that she just has to use multiple birds, and with them dying for her, it ends up being such a strong and dangerous technique. I then have Dagon's water ability, which I thought was very interesting and could have a big indication of things to come. I mean, it was very strong and he could use it in numerous ways, and the versatility was pretty much up there. I put it below some of the higher end techniques such as blood manipulation. However, it's a very dangerous technique which could be used to its fullest from other sorcerers. Another one which is Ice Formation. Ice Formation is Urume's innate technique. However, I just didn't add it because we don't know enough of it and we haven't seen enough for me to rank it. However, the damage seems to be elite, and it seemed to be one of the most strongest curse techniques that we've seen in the series. But now let's get to number 1 and the best technique in the series, and I think it's pretty much obvious, and this is Limitless, and obviously in unison with the 6 eyes. So why do I say in unison with the 6 eyes? Well, you can't use Limitless to its full potential without the 6 eyes, with the fact that it will completely drain you of your curse energy. However, Limitless allows you to create an infinity, and then you get access to 3 of the most stupidest techniques in the series. So if we talk about power, the power is an instant 10 because you get things such as Reversal Red, which gives you the ability to repel, and the energy output is twice as strong as needed for blue. You also get Cursed Technique Lapse Blue, which breaks reality and makes the impossible possible. It allows him the ability to attract, and it creates a magnetic type effect. We also get Hollow Purple, which distorts space and time and destroys completely everything in its path. So it erases space, and it's the most broken technique, and it's why power is an instant 10. We get to utility. I've just explained those 3 different techniques, which allows him to repel, allows him to attract, and allows him to break space and reality. I mean, there is no weakness or level of versatility that he can't do, and there is nothing that is a weakness for this ability. And it's why when we get to drawbacks as well, it's another 10. I mean, this is the best ability, and the ability is enhanced with the fact that you get the 6 eyes. Of course, if you want me to be nitpicky, if you want to say there is a possibility that a Limitless user can be born without the 6 eyes, and then in that opinion, the Limitless becomes pretty much useless because the curse energy needed to use the Limitless is extensive, and having the 6 eyes is what makes the technique so broken. So for that regard, you could say that it would have a drawback of 0 because they can't use the technique to its fullest. However, because of the series and the nature of it, we know that you need basically 6 eyes to maximize it, so until further notice, it's going to have a perfect score of 30. But what do you guys think of this video, and do you agree or disagree? Let me know your rankings down below, and did I forget any of your curse techniques? Well, thank you guys for watching, and make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.